I went and checked it out.
I would like to call the meeting to order. If we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So we have 4 meetings this evening. The first one we are going to start with is Urban Renewal District Budget Committee regular session. And with that, can we have the roll call?
Matt Barber. Corey Brewster. She's absent, excuse. Steve Clemens.
Here.
Corrine Dudo.
Here.
David Glabe.
Here.
Nicole Howard.
Here.
Megan Keating. Molly King.
Here.
Marianne Meisner.
Here.
Roxy Ogilvy. Justin Rock.
Here.
Tony Smith. She's absent, excused as well. Denise Wheeler. Here. And Joya Wong is absent, excused.
Thank you. So this first part, agenda approval. This meeting of the City of LeGrand Urban Renewal District Budget Committee is here for a sole purpose of approving the minutes of May 13, 2024 Urban Renewal District Budget Hearing. And with that, is there any changes or? Do we have a motion?
I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Now, do I adjourn or do we vote?
All in favor?
Perfect. All in favor? Aye. All right. Now we will adjourn the City of LeGrand Budget Committee regular session.
Did the budget committee get to vote on that too?
They did.
Oh, I just didn't hear anybody out there.
Well, this was just on the minutes, Marianne.
I know it was.
We already voted back during the meeting.
No, I know that. But I missed that. I didn't. I thought they would vote on this on the minutes. I just didn't see
Yeah,
it
they
here. Okay.
All right. Our next one. Our next one is for the City of LeGrand Budget Committee regular session. Can we have a roll call vote?
Matt Barber.
Here, wait one moment. Can I call to order? Now can we have the roll call vote?
Matt Barber.
Here.
Corey Brewster is absent, excused. Steve Clemens.
Here.
Corrine Dudo.
Here.
David Glabe.
Here.
Nicole Howard.
Here.
Megan Keating. Molly King.
Here.
Marianne Meisner.
Here.
Roxy Ogilvy.
Here.
Justin Rock.
Here.
Tony Smith is absent, excused. Denise Wheeler.
Here.
Joya Wong is absent, excused.
Thank you. This meeting of the City of LeGrand Budget Committee is for the sole purpose, once again, to approve the minutes from the May 13 and 14, 2024 City General, Enterprise, and Other Fund Budget Hearings. Is there any changes? Do we have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. At this time, we will adjourn to the Urban Renewal Agency regular sessions. All right, I would like to call this meeting to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Justin Rock.
Here.
David Glabe.
Here.
Corrine Dudo.
Here.
Nicole Howard.
Here.
Molly King.
Here.
Marianne Meisner.
Here.
Denise Wheeler.
Here.
Is there any changes to the agenda?
They're not.
Perfect. Consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions? Motion?
I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. All right, this will be the portion of the meeting for public comments for urban renewal. If there is an item not on the agenda, this would be your time to speak. You have a 3-minute time limit, so please step to the podium, fill out the paperwork, name and address, and it is your time.
My name is Virginia Mammon, like 405 also. And I am one of the citizens of Union County concerned about the debts that are being created by City Council urban renewal with their irresponsible decisions in using an underlevy of urban renewal funds in order to increase the city budget. If the maximum amount of funds under ORS 457.440 is not required to pay the principal and interest on indebtedness occurred for an urban renewal plan, the urban renewal agency may take formal action to limit collections under a plan for a single year and may notify the county assessor pursuant to ORS 457.440. The auditor's report for the year ended June 2023 states the following. The City of LaGrande Urban Renewal is a legally separate organization for which the city is accountable. This agency is so intertwined with the city that it is in substance the same, the city, and therefore is blended and reported as if it was a part of the city. The elected mayor and city council serve as the governing board of the LaGrande Urban Renewal Agency. It appears that the city wants to have it both ways, an urban renewal project when it's convenient or a city project when that is convenient. The funding should come from one source for some projects and another source for other projects. The original urban renewal plan has changed considerably, but the debt has never changed. One should come from the urban renewal agency, the other should require the vote of the people. The City Council Urban Renewal Agency, by creating an ongoing underlevy and allowing the finance of the city and urban renewal being intermixed, has allowed the city to go into debt for nearly $3 million with a projected ending date of 2034. As citizens, we cannot continue allowing more taxes to be imposed without the consent of the people. Section 32 of the Constitution of Oregon states no tax or duty shall be imposed without the consent of the people. Enough is enough. It's time to sunset urban renewal. This is not a problem that can be solved by
appreciate your
those so
comments. Your time is
heavily invested in its problems.
Thank you. If you can make sure the city recorder gets one as well, please. The city recorder, can you make sure she gets one? All right, is there anybody that would like to speak to the council on a non-agenda item? And once again, this is for the urban renewal agency. Nope. All right, we will move into our public hearing. The public hearing is now open on fiscal year 2024-2025 Urban Renewal District budget as approved by the Urban Renewal District Budget Committee on May 13th, 2024. Are there any declarations or conflict of interest of any member? Nope. Can we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the agency. As the mayor noted, the Budget Committee held a public hearing. There was an opportunity for public testimony, and the Budget Committee voted to approve the urban renewal proposed budget as presented. Included in that budget are $350,000 of urban renewal dollars for the non-business park call for projects program. That's all new money. We carried forward $500,000 for an agency initiated proactive project that has not been identified. That is, again, carry forward money from prior years. Also carried forward is $425,000 for the business park or traded sector initiated. That's a combination of those two programs that we did a couple of years ago, and $75,000 for the facade grant program. So pretty much status quo funding levels from the prior year, and also carrying forward some dollars for previously approved call for projects from past years. Happy to answer any questions you may have. I think we went over this in pretty good detail at the budget hearing, but happy to answer any questions you may have.
No question? All right. Thank you, Robert. At this time, I would like to invite public testimony in connection with the fiscal year 2024-2025 Urban Renewal District budget. All right, there are none. At this time, I would like to close the public hearing on the fiscal year 2024-2025 Urban Renewal District budget and invite agency discussion.
Just so I'm clear, we did increase the amount of the under levy by approximately 200,000.
It is higher this year.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay. Maybe about 200,000.
All right. With that, motion.
Are we waiting for the, okay.
Yes.
I move that the proposed resolution adopting the fiscal year 2024-2025 Urban Renewal District budget be read by title only, put to a vote, and passed.
Do we have a second? Second. We have motion and a second. Is there any additional agency discussion? No?
I think we covered this pretty much in depth at
We did.
the budget hearings.
So if there is no more discussion at this time, I would like to ask the city recorder to read the proposed resolution by title only.
The resolution of the City of LaGrande, Urban Renewal Agency of the City of LaGrande, Union County, Oregon, adopting the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget, making appropriations and levying taxes.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Perfect. All right, we have no unfinished business. We have no unfinished business, no new business. District manager comments?
None, thank you.
Very well. Any member comments? With that, I would like to adjourn the urban renewal, and then we will go into the city council regular session.
Yeah, that was part of the consent.
With that, I would like to call to order to the city council regular session. Can we have a roll call vote?
Justin Rock,
Here.
David Glabe,
Here.
Corinne Dudo,
Here.
Nicole Howard, here, Molly King, here, Marianne Meisner,
Here.
Denise Wheeler.
Perfect. Thank you. Is there any additions to the changes to the agenda? Nope. Consent agenda. Is there any item that anybody needs to discuss, or do we have a motion?
I lost my place.
I will wait till everybody gets caught up. See, the tablets are nice, but the old book way is so much easier to stay organized.
Sorry.
This is one of those times when technology is not faster.
Okay.
I
No?
know where we are. Can you make a
This is,
motion?
this is
So,
the general budget. Is that-
So what I'm asking is
Yeah, I
consent
know.
agenda.
I move that we,
The consent agenda as presented.
well.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna pull the Riverside Park Greenway. Can we pull that and talk about that? Just so it's clear.
I grabbed that right off the top of my head and then you changed it.
So you want to move E, 3E?
I've got it too. Is that the one that we're accepting the consent agenda?
As amended. So I move that we,
What did we amend?
I
She's gonna
asked
bring
to
it.
have E moved down to new
Okay.
business.
So it'd become 7B, is that correct,
Okay,
Robert?
gotcha. Okay, thank you.
So 3E will become 7B, and then we'll be voting on the rest of it as presented.
And I move we accept the
Regular,
consent
just the full
agenda
pack.
as amended.
Do we have a second?
Second, whatever.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Is everybody caught up?
Yep, yeah, I am.
Actually, I'll move into the public comment, and then
I just
after
didn't
that,
want Stu to fall asleep back there.
we're good. We're good. All right. So at this time, I will invite citizens to come up, and this is the time for public comment for the city council regular session. If you have anything to address or bring to us that is not on our agenda, now is that time. I don't see anybody running, so we are going to keep moving. We are going to move on into the public hearing. All right. At this time, I would like to open the public hearing on the fiscal year 2024-2025 City of LeGrand budgets and state revenue sharings as approved by the City of LeGrand Budget Committee on May 14, 2024. Our next step will be declarations, and yes, I do have a declaration that I want to read. I am declaring a potential conflict of interest because of the City of LeGrand has a competitive awarded contract for towing services, which may include a business in which I have an interest that could receive payments from the City of LeGrand general fund budget. I do not believe this potential conflict of interest will influence my decision regarding the city's budget and that I can remain impartial. Therefore, I will be participating in discussion and voting on any motion related to the proposed changes to the general city's general fund budget. I am also declaring a potential conflict of interest for the city's enterprise and other fund budgets because I own a business that potentially does business with the Public Works Department. Based on the potential for selling tires to Public Works in the future, I will not participate in the discussion on any enterprise or other fund budgets. Given the resolution adopts the city budget includes the enterprise and other fund budgets, I will abstain from the final vote on the budget adoption. Is there any other counselor wishing to declare any conflict of interest? Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The budget process for the city starts in January with the annual retreat, during which time the city council establishes goals and priorities for the coming year. Based on that, the staff develops a requested budget, and I meet individually with departments and prepare the proposed budget, which is presented to the budget committee. The budget committee can make changes to that. This year, there was some discussion about reducing the city's general fund budget by 2% of the $3.6 million deficit that's forecast within the proposed now approved budget. That motion did fail. The city council can increase fund budgets as approved by the budget committee by up to 10%. I don't think there's any indication that anybody wanted to do increase expenditures. The city council can reduce any of the budget amounts without limit. Of course, if you reduce things, then there will be an impact on services accordingly. In advance of the budget hearings on the 13th and 14th of May, the budget committee submitted questions, which was extremely helpful because it gave staff an opportunity to look at the question, provide a detailed answer. Those questions and answers were shared in memos that were provided to the budget committee as a whole, and also immediately posted on the city's website along with the proposed budgets. And I think that's a really good system that we've been using. It, I think, shortens the process, and it also gives a lot more transparency to everyone because people know what the questions were, know what the answers were, and then additional questions that were asked were answered during the hearing. I think this is the first year that I didn't have any carryover questions from night 1 to night 2. There was a request for a chart, but other than that, I don't think we had any that weren't covered, which was pretty gratifying. The overall budget for the general fund, as I mentioned, shows a $3.6 million deficit. And we provided at the budget hearing information regarding our last 5 completed budgets. In each of those, we had initially anticipated a deficit, and in each case, we ended up without one. The current budget has a $3.1 million deficit. And if we look at the estimated revenues and expenses for the current year, if all of that comes to play, the actual reduction in the ending fund balance, I think, will be about $1.4 million, not the 3.1. As presented and approved by the budget committee, if all of the projections are correct, our beginning projection for cash on hand in the city's general fund, then we get 100% of our revenues and 100% of our expenses are all made. At the end of the coming fiscal year, we'll have a little over $5 million cash on hand, just to kind of give some context to where we are overall. In the budget, there are a few continuing money requests, and we also provided to the budget committee kind of an allocation for a couple of those, what would be new money and what would essentially be supplanting others. So for the parks and aquatics, there was a seasonal position that would go away in contracted janitorial services. For the 2 dispatch positions, 911 would share a cost in that, and the users of the service would share a cost in that. So the actual impact to the city's budget, general fund budget, is actually fairly small in comparison to the overall cost. I don't see any of those requests as being wants. I view them, for the reasons that were identified as needed things to do. And I recognize the concern about incurring continuing money expenses when we're budgeting deficits. And I think one of the things that is important for us to keep in mind is we're going to be taking a look at, on an annual basis, where we are and seeing if we need to make any significant course corrections. I don't think that removing those positions will have a substantive effect on our long-term fiscal viability. I think that what is likely going to happen as we move forward is we're going to continue to underspend the budget, and we're going to be pretty close in our revenues. So I don't think it's as dire as the December 5-year projections kind of showed. And we illustrated that with a projection if we went back 5 years and said, what was the average the department spent? And because it's fairly consistent, just to see using those same projections and not changing the capital expenditures and not changing the revenues, where we would be at the end of the 26-27 budget year. And it's a pretty healthy cash balance. I know it's going to be somewhere in between. I can't tell you where it's going to be. So that was all information that was provided. I think there was some really good discussion with the budget committee in that regard. And again, we did a really good job, I think, of getting the questions and answers out. I'm happy to answer any additional questions that you may have. You gonna do the public testimony piece?
What's that?
You can do the public testimony.
Robert, I guess I have a couple of questions here. So
If we could invite public testimony
the public-
first,
do that first?
and then we'll
That's
come
great.
back.
Sorry, Rob.
I think it'll just simply flow better.
Okay, sorry, you asked for questions.
I did.
so
I did.
Okay.
I did.
That was my bad. I fell asleep, sorry.
Yeah.
At this time, we would like to invite public comment on the fiscal year 2024-2025 City of LeGrand budgets and state revenue sharings. So at this time, if anybody would like to step to the podium and speak of that, this is the time. Nope. All right. So at this time, I would like to close the public hearing on the state fiscal year 2024-2025 City of LeGrand budgets and state revenue sharing and invite council discussion. Now is the time for any questions that the councilors have towards staff or to the other council.
So I had a maybe a comment / question, but you mentioned, Robert, that the things are fairly consistent across 2018 to 2023, but that's I think not what I'm seeing here. So if we look at the major discrepancies between the projected, the projected and actual budgets, the two big ones that vary widely are labor expenditures and then materials and services. So among those years, we have labor expenditures ranging, differences ranging anywhere from 300,000 to $1 million. Those to me are sizable differences. Material services, same thing, 300,000 up to 3.2 million in discrepancies between projected and actual. And so when we're talking about a projected deficit of 3.4 or 3.6 million dollars, this is quite a bit more than most of what we've had for the last 5 years. That concerns me a little bit. And I wasn't present at the May 14th meeting. I did go back and watch that. The sense I got was that I may be oversimplifying this, but the sense I got was that we were kind of saying, well, we should approve this because we probably don't intend to spend it all. And I take a little bit of issue with that because I think, how much do we intend to spend? I mean, when we approve that dollar amount, we are authorizing the city to spend the entirety of that amount. And so if we anticipate spending less than that, then I think we should have a conversation about how much less do we anticipate spending. And maybe that's a new conversation point for saying, can we dial this back to that amount, to the anticipated amount? And we have done a very good job. This is a credit to our city manager and city staff of in the past, allowing for very conservative estimates on the budget. I mean, that has served the city extremely well. But this is a higher amount than we've had in recent history for a projected deficit. And a couple of other things concern me just with my own history on the council. I know that a lot of those years, a lot of these numbers were due to an inability to fill positions in police, fire, other places. we have been fortunate enough to fill a lot of those positions. And so I'm not sure that I'm not sure we can expect to see the same reduction in expenditures that we have in years past. We've also been through some odd years like COVID-19. That certainly affected some of the numbers for those years. So to me, anyway, that's a concern that I have. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the amount, and I guess I would pose the question: if we anticipate spending less than this, how much less do we anticipate spending? And is there a reason why we're asking for more than we anticipate spending?
Sure. And I appreciate the question. We're intending to spend every dollar that we budget. And the reality is, the PD is always down too. They're always down a dispatcher and a cop, or two cops or two dispatchers in the entire time that I have been here. I think that they've been fully staffed maybe for 3 or 4 months. So I know we're not going to, from past experience, spend all of our labor budget. One of the things that's a bit deceptive in a couple of these fiscal years on the labor is budgeting for a deputy public works director, not filling the position. Budgeting for a deputy fire chief and not filling the position. So we've had a couple of situations there. The current budget year, we double budgeted, one for an IT contract, one for an IT full-time staff member, knowing that we were going to spend one or the other. So it's not a perfect model. And the CARES funding and the ARPA funding certainly skew the revenues for those years. And we recognize that. I would say that the current year that we're in is a fairly typical year. And one of the things that we look at is what's the percentage for the current year that we're estimating to spend. And labor for the general fund is total. If we hit the estimated marks that were put in with the proposed budget, that's going to be 91%, materials and services 89%, and capital outlay 78%, which is kind of consistent with most of our years. So I see that trend being fairly consistent. I don't think saying, well, then let's cut our materials and services budget by 10%, because some of our departments are going to spend 97, 98. Some of them are going to spend closer to 80. And this is not use it or lose it money. Like if you've ever operated in the federal government system, if you don't spend every dime that you have, you're not going to get that much in your next budget. If we don't spend it, it rolls back into our general fund so that we can buy things down the road. I think that building a budget in the way that we have, which is very conservative, has really paid dividends for us. I was looking at the 2016-2017 budget the other day. And I was specifically looking at the general reserve fund. There's about 500,000 in that. The majority of that was system development charge for parks money. We're sitting at $1.8 million now because of the council's guidance to put money into the general reserve and take portions of the unanticipated increase in cash. So we're shifting those dollars for future purchases that are vital to us. We can turn that off. And if we turn that off this year, that's close to $1 million that would simply stay in the general fund. Because we have 279,000 going to streets, 279,000 going to the IT upgrades that we're planning on doing, and $500,000 moving into the general reserve fund. So we're doing well financially, and I think it's important that when we do those 5-year projections, we do it assuming we're going to spend everything. And you're right to be concerned. And one of the things that I think we should do is this fall sit down and really talk about, regardless of the outcome this evening, sit down and really talk about what do we want to do for the long term? Because one of the things that's going to happen, perhaps not as quickly as Jeannie Mammon would like to see, is urban renewal will go away, which will then return those dollars to the city's general fund. So the farther out that we can push without cutting services, the closer we get to that influx of general fund dollars. And I will correct one misstatement. The urban renewal district is not generating new taxes. If urban renewal went away tomorrow, your tax bill would be exactly the same in the amount, because the urban renewal allocation is an allocation of the tax levy for the all districts, incremental portion provided to the city's urban renewal district. So your tax debt does not go down when urban renewal goes away. I digress. So I think having a conversation with and some modeling of what does that look like, because we know there's a certain point in time that urban renewal is going to hit that maximum indebtedness. Having a better feel for where that is in relation to the city's general fund situation is prudent for us to do. And I think that may cause different guidance from the council as part of that retreat process. What you have in front of you is a budget that reflects the outcome of the retreat, and it does include adding some positions, which I know there's hesitation about doing that, but I think there's very valid and strong justification for all of them. So I don't know if I answered your complete
I
question.
think you did. Will you remind me how many general fund dollars are going into urban renewal annually?
Yeah.
I have some vague recollection. It was like 1 point something million, but I just.
So looking at the current under levy,
About 500.
$574,008 of urban renewal dollars coming to the general fund. And we're levying 750,000. We're levying on urban renewal to put $750,000 of new money into the urban renewal district. The total, if we did not levy at all, there'd be another almost $1.4 million coming into urban renewal.
Okay.
So the total value of the district without an under levy for the coming year is $2.1 million.
And the general fund portion of that is?
The general fund portion of that, when urban renewal is gone,
Yes.
would be 41.48%.
Of that 2 point. Okay. And I, Robert, I appreciate your explanation there, and I certainly don't wish to discount in any way the requests for new staffing. I would agree with you that these are needed things. You know, the dispatchers, the library staff. These are things that we wish to provide. I guess I'm wondering, is there some way that we can be a little bit more conservative? And I guess I would invite that for council discussion. Is there some way that we can dial this back a little bit? Just the amount makes me a little bit nervous. I feel like we're pushing up against. We're trying our luck here. We've been fortunate. I feel like we're going to try our luck this year, and part of me almost wants to say, can we hold that $1 million in reserve that we have put aside for future projects? I agree that is a very smart thing to do. We're protecting our future when we do that. But in a situation like this, I'm wondering if pulling back on that, seeing where the chips fall, and then provided that we are successful in not spending all the money that we've budgeted, putting that back into something, back into that for the following year. I mean, I guess I'm wondering, because it's not an immediate impact. We're talking future dollars set aside here.
If I could, sorry.
You go first.
If I could reframe it a little bit, I think the verbiage is about luck and chips and somehow like we're in this casino. And I think that's the wrong metaphor. I think we have a data-driven budget that rests on priorities that we established. And I don't think I understand the impulse, but I don't think it makes sense to budget on intuition or emotion. I can understand that you see something, if you project out and the asteroid hits the Earth, a lot of bad things are going to happen. But I don't think that actually makes a lot of sense because we have really good empirical data going back to 17, 18, that this approach to budgeting has served the city well. It's conservative. It is the very thing that I think you're asking for. And I don't think this is the place to try to kind of last minute, shuffle things around and make some little cuts. I mean, what I came away from those budget hearings thinking is that the directors have done everything they could to cut and trim and consolidate and find a way to make the janitor do this instead of hiring somebody. I mean, in every sense, they have been conservative. I think Robert is conservative. And if, as a council, I will be gone next year, but that wasn't gloating. But as a council, I think in January, that's the time to say, look, we're serious this year about doing X, Y, and Z, and then you set those priorities. I think to do it here is both kind of Monday morning quarterbacking, and I think it does a real disservice to the thoughtfulness that's been put into this by this council, by directors, and by the city manager.
See, I think that we did that. We did tell them at the retreat that we wanted to cut back and that deficit.
I think the language of the retreat was to continue to provide services at the
without
level
adding anything else.
which we have been doing.
So and
Well-
that's where I'm coming from too.
But let me push back, Marianne, because providing services is not necessarily to say, sometimes it takes two people to serve the soft serve ice cream because the demand is greater. Parks has grown.
I know what you're saying.
So I think we're keeping the services at the level that we committed to. It's just going to take more people. We have more 911 calls.
But we just need to show that we are addressing that deficit. I think it's really important that we show that we are making an attempt to balance it out more.
So we're running a yearly deficit, but essentially we have savings that we're spending down.
Right.
And my view of this is that I'm watchful, but I don't think it's time to pull levers and cut services in order to maintain the savings way up here when up here would serve us well. The citizens have paid their taxes, and I think they deserve the services that they're expecting. So that's my perspective. I'm not concerned that we're going to go into a hole. I think we need to every year reevaluate in January and say, where are we now? And do we need to start pulling these levers? And we've already talked about making some changes. I just don't think it's quite time to do that.
So I would point this out that as you talk about yes, we have cash on hand. And if we overspend, we're going to substantially deplete that. So if you look at the prior deficits that we have projected back to the 2018 data, that's generally not been higher than about 10% of our cash on hand. You're talking about deficits now that would approximate between 30 and 40% of our remaining cash on hand, which substantially decreases our ability to make a pivot. That causes a lot harder pivot at the end of a year or two than if we dial this back a little bit and say, hey, we want to retain a little more of that cash on hand so that we don't have to start laying off staff or cutting back on services, because that's what we want to avoid. And so I think we're speaking the same language, but taking two different approaches, Corinne.
Correct.
My approach is we have the same end goal, but I'm saying I want to retain that cash on hand so we don't ever have to cut back on library or parks or lay off city staff.
I mean,
And I worry that we're putting ourselves in a poor position when we look at running a deficit that constitutes that percentage of our remaining cash on hand.
I mean,
That is a much higher percentage than what we've
we
done.
were there once before where we had to cut library hours, cut the swimming pool hours, because we let ourselves get there. And I don't want to do that again. I've been through that.
And I also agree with Marianne. We did talk about that in January and in
January,
December.
yeah.
Yeah, in our retreats. So
And of course, when I asked at the budget meeting, it was only a 2% cut of the deficit, which wasn't much. But it was something to at least get us started. So,
Well, my comment on this one is we have a lot of work this year
yes.
from the sounds of the council. I think that all the city manager and the directors did an amazing job setting this budget up for us. Yes, it is higher than what we have in the past. We are keeping the services, so this next year, then we need to say, are we going to be deducting those services? If you want to spend less money, that means you're going to give things away. You're not going to be getting what you're getting now at the full quality. There we go. You know,
Unless that money comes from the money
Right.
that's being set aside for future projects.
Right.
In which case, no loss of services occurs this year. We're, you're not putting as much in, we don't have as much for future reserve for these projects that will be important down the line, I understand. But to me, that would represent some type of a compromise where we're acknowledging we're spending, projected to spend a little more than we're comfortable with. We've got to pull it from somewhere, but if we feel like these new positions are important, if they're needs, not wants, then we've got to pull from things that are not immediately necessary, where we can retain the current services. That's just that's a suggestion, but I think either that or, but if we anticipate spending all of this money, we will deplete our cash reserves by between 30 and 40% if my numbers are accurate. So,
Well, and
correct.
Robert did make the comment that they plan on spending all of the money that is in the budget. I know that they don't usually, I know that, but you can't guarantee that you're not going to spend all the money. So, because the way the budget sits right now, I will say no to it.
So just to clarify, Councilor Glabe, are you suggesting that the transfer to the general reserve for the specifically identified future capital projects be reduced, or that the transfer to the general reserve that represent that $500,000 that is that unanticipated increase in cash be reduced to offset current and future costs that we have?
I think I would be open to considering either. And I'm not talking to the tune of an enormous amount, but maybe, maybe we consider taking this from and you said 3.6. For some reason, I had 3.4 in my head. Maybe I had those numbers wrong.
I think it's 3.6.
I had thought it was 3.4, but I was thinking if we could get that down closer to 3, that makes me feel a little bit more comfortable. That remains, about the highest projected deficit that we've considered for the last several years. Which I think needs some serious discussion this next year or two. But,
Oh, I stand corrected, 3.392.
okay,
So
yeah, so
3.4.
it's about a little under 3.4. Okay. So I might propose getting that down to 300. And if that means that we need to remove 400,000 from that, I think that that's a reasonable approach to doing it.
I could live with that.
Where are you proposing pulling that from?
We're putting money into reserve funds for future projects, right? To anticipate, the end life of water, sewer infrastructure, things like that, correct?
No, this is not
Sorry,
water
this is-
sewer.
This isn't,
Police
Yes,
department.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
So
The-
we're setting aside money for anticipated future projects that are not immediately needs. They're not immediately connected to the level of services or staffing that the city has.
Library roof is a good example
I
of the
think that's
use of
pretty
those dollars.
short-sighted.
I would agree it's short-sighted.
to not set that money aside. And I think that has smoothed out our budget in many years because that has already been set aside. So if we don't do this now, then we're going to have more costs. So a roof is a great example. If you don't have the money set aside, you wait until the roof is leaking, then you got to replace the roof and the drywall and the carpet and all of those other things. And I think setting that aside now makes more fiscal sense.
How much do we have in that fund right now?
Well, the balance there is, I think, projected to be 1.8 million. The big chunk of that is system development charges. That's probably what, 300,000 to 500,000. And then chunks of that were specifically earmarked for certain departments. So the library has been putting money in for the HVAC upgrade. In the proposed budget, there would be another 50,000 going into that for future ambulance replacement.
Right, maybe that.
But there are probably 800,000, 800 or 900,000 that's undesignated.
I mean, if we have money that we're setting aside for designated capital needs in the future, I am not an advocate of pulling that. If it's undesignated, I'd be amenable to that.
But you're not pulling it, you're just not adding to it.
Well, exactly.
Okay.
But not adding to it when it comes time to replace
True.
that thing, then you don't have.
But your
the money to
budget at
replace the
home,
thing.
if you can't afford to add to that budget, you don't do it
But
this
if
year.
there are some that is undesignated, I'm amenable to not setting that aside.
Did you say we have a 500,000 that is undesignated?
So, I address this with the budget committee in a slightly different fashion. City council passed a resolution that specifically identified what to do with the unanticipated increase in cash. 25% to streets, 25% to current year capital, 50% to the general reserve. The council has the authority to direct the staff to bring forth in July a resolution changing that allocation. And with the understanding of that's the intent, the council could then, in my view, without violating your own policy that we base those allocations on, make a decision to reduce the transfer to the streets, reduce the transfer to the general reserve. I would suggest not reducing the dollars that we plan to use for the IT upgrades.
And that is a resolution that this council passed.
Correct. And that's why
So
I
we're kind
say,
of walking back something that we
yeah,
decided was.
in my statement at the budget committee is it would have been inappropriate for the budget committee to do anything with that allocation because it would require the city council to change the resolution. So that's the difference in the conversation with the budget committee, because the question was, what would we do? Where would we cut to get the $67,000? And my answer was the transfer to general reserve that's in the city manager's budget that totals $94,000. That's where I would have said to go. If you're talking about trying to pull $600,000 or $400,000 out of the budget, taking it from the unanticipated increase in cash would be a way to do it. That actually funds about 3.8 years of the additional positions that are in the budget.
Merely offer that as a suggestion. I mean, and Mary Ann's analogy is true. So, if I'm saving money, I anticipate my car is going to die in 10 years. I want to replace it, right?
Yeah.
But if my budget's tight, I don't put money into that account. I use it toward the immediate needs. And that's the idea here, is that rather than stick these into what are earmarked budgets for future needs, that we would recognize the fact that we've run a higher deficit, or we're projecting to run a higher deficit this year than we have in years past. We'll reserve that funding so that we don't dig it out of the broader piggy bank, which is more flexible for spending, a little more versatile, if I'm not mistaken there, and pull back. And then if we're successful at not spending all of that $3.4 million out of our general fund piggy bank, then we can always put that back in next year. You can backfill that at any time, but I think the difference is keeping it in the more flexible, piggy bank versus an earmarked future projection.
Right.
That's just the suggestion that I would offer to the council and invite other discussion from members.
Yeah, it's not that we're going to spend the money, we want to keep it. It's there. And it can go back in if you are accurate that you're not going to spend all the money next year. But then we'll have to do that possibly next year to keep that deficit shrinking.
Robert, urban renewal is an annual renewal. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
that's
That's a lever that we can pull. if
it's
we
a
need
lever. It's a lever that we can control, and
It's there.
Yeah.
Jenny Mammon was exactly correct. It's a 1-year decision. It's not limited to 1 year
Right.
consecutively. It's a 1-year. It's an annual decision. We send a letter to the taxing jurisdictions indicating the intent to underlevy, so that if they have objections, they can share those. But that's a lever that you can adjust and pull. And right now, when we look at just as an illustration, our call for projects program, we're putting $350,000 a year into that. We could easily roll that back to $250,000, and we could also take that $500,000 that's sitting there that we don't have anything specific to do, use that for current year funding and substantially underlevy to put a big chunk into the general. So there are levers.
Precisely. So it's not as,
Right.
if you look at it that way, it's not as big of a crisis as this, this deficit that's growing.
That's true. But remember that when you start doing that and you quit underlevying, it's going to eventually.
I would
catch
also
up.
point out that this
Yeah.
year in particular, we increased the underlevy amount by $200,000 just to get to the projected deficit we have. So
Yeah.
had we not done that, we are at
You're
3.6.
The same since we also need to look at the money that was increased in urban renewal by tax property. Because each year you have an increase. So yes, we did take more of an under levy, but there is more money going into taxes. So instead of keep feeding the beast, we're keeping it tame. Sorry, I probably shouldn't say it that way, but
So that's staying flat.
yes.
So just to kind of summarize what I'm hearing, just to be clear, if the decision is made to reduce the amount of dollars going to the general reserve, those dollars would just sit in the general fund. So they would not move to the more protected general reserve. So they would just stay in fund balance, and it would not have any other impact on the budget. And as was pointed out, in future years, you can always make a decision on the amount to transfer over. I think it would be helpful to kind of move the decision along to have a motion related to the specific amount to reduce the transfer to the general reserve fund and see where that lands.
So would you put it in your unfunded, your ending balance?
So what happens?
That would go.
Yeah, it would just, so
Yeah.
what would happen is in execution in the budget, there would be a reduction in the transfer outline. There would be a reduction in the general reserve transfer in line, and then the city's unappropriated ending fund balance
yeah,
would increase by that amount.
That's what I thought. Okay.
That's what would happen if you did that. And
I have a motion.
Hmm?
Can I make a motion?
Yeah, you can.
I move that the proposed resolution adopting the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget and levying taxes be read by title only, put to a vote, and passed as presented.
Second.
So since I am abstaining myself from this vote, it will be Mr. Glabe to move on with the procedure, correct, Robert?
Yeah,
You can-
one,
just can't vote, right?
yeah, you can still run the meeting.
Perfect.
I just want to be really clear to everyone, the impact of that particular motion is it also addresses the enterprise and other funds. It's the entire budget. It's not just the general fund. Yeah, and I know that people at the dais understand that, but I just want to make sure that the audience did as well.
And we are talking about the general fund. But
Yeah,
that's how.
talking about, yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
That's fine.
and there was really not much discussion related to the enterprise and other
Right.
funds. Really, all of the conversation with the budget committee and all of the conversation thus far tonight has been tied to the general fund.
I just wanted everyone to know that we're only talking about the general fund.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any additional council discussion?
I think you should probably do it by,
Well, what I have to do from this point is we have to ask the city recorder to read the resolution by title only first, and then we will ask for a vote at that time.
I would vote by person.
Correct. So at this time, can we have the city recorder to read the proposed resolution by title only?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of LaGrande, Union County, Oregon, adopting the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget, making appropriations and levying taxes.
At this time, I will ask for a roll call vote, and I will be abstaining from the vote to start.
David Glabe,
No.
Corinne Dudo,
Yes.
Nicole Howard,
Yes.
Molly King,
Yes.
Marianne Miesner,
No.
Denise Wheeler.
No.
It's a tied vote.
Title fails.
So we will move back, and if we can get another motion, and we'll go through the procedure once again.
Trying to remember how he said it, but
Do you have a specific dollar amount?
I didn't. Did you have a particular? I just think we need to do several hundred thousand at least, 2 to 3.
I
Kind
like,
of talked about 2%, almost what, 1.9 or 2%.
I like it. I like reducing that deficit to 3 million instead of 3.4.
So that would be 300,000.
400, well,
I-
300 change.
Yeah, but what if you just did an even number?
Figure.
If I could be helpful,
Yes, please.
perhaps a motion to reduce the transfer to the general reserve fund by $400,000.
400?
Robert, I guess the only other point I would make is I would like to, to me, we have a brilliant city manager, we have good staff. Must we designate how that be done, or can we leave that to you and just say, we don't want a deficit past this amount?
If you told me to cut the budget by $400,000, that's where I would go.
Okay.
And it's consistent with the council's guidance of not reducing services and programs.
Yep.
And I agree with the earlier comment that Ryan Harvey was good at saying maintaining staffing is not continuing to maintain the level of service because the demands on the services
Sure.
increase. So you're actually, if you're status quo, you're going behind a little bit. But the council's guidance is maintain programs, maintain current levels of service first, then capital last. So a transfer to the general reserve for future capital, to me, would have the least impact on the services being provided to the city in the short term.
And I would just like to say that I would have the stated intent of restoring, if we are successful in not running a deficit this year, and restoring that money to its originally intended place.
If we don't run more.
Do we have a motion on this?
Yeah.
So we gotta get moving. So we do have.
So I'm just
additional-
thinking how to word that, but I would move that we would adopt.
No, it would be, this is going to be a
Just that.
finite motion, and the
Yes.
mayor will be able to vote on this.
Okay.
So the motion would be,
Right.
I move that we reduce the transfer from the city's
Yes.
general fund to the general reserve fund by $400,000.
Can I know like Mary Ann was talking about when we had the budget committee, like a 1.9. That's kind of what I was talking about.
Are you talking about 1.9% or are you talking
Yeah.
about 1.9 million?
No. Hell, no. But anyway, 400, that sounds like a lot.
That's the number that gets Mr. Glabe to the $3 million
Oh,
deficit.
to the 3 million. Okay, that's why. Okay. That's what I was thinking. Okay.
Yeah.
Procedurally, can we vote just on the general fund and not on the enterprise?
Yeah,
funds?
you're going to just vote on the motion to reduce that. So yes, you absolutely can.
Say general fund, yeah. Say general.
So I
fund,
move that
yeah.
we would reduce the transfer to the general reserve fund from the general fund by $400,000.
Second.
So on
Does
the,
that include,
I just have a quick question. So we have motion and a second. Of course, there are counselor discuss or additional discussion will be coming, but
You can participate in that because you have stated that you do not have an actual conflict of interest for the general fund.
correct.
And we have done this before. That typically occurs at the budget committee where someone will want to cut something and it's treated as a single action to make that one minor change to the budget. So not that $400,000 is a minor change, but I think it's wholly appropriate for the motion as crafted to be an up-down vote. And then if that fails, then the question is, what's the next thing to try to get us to a complete vote? And another option would be, well, why don't we see how this one goes? Because there's a motion and a
Correct.
second on the table. And we'll
There
see
is.
where that lands, and based on how that lands,
So with that, we will go to additional council discussion.
so I want to be clear on what this vote is for. It is taking the general fund budget, reducing 400,000 that would be going into general reserve.
correct.
No?
No, that's correct.
Okay.
That's right.
Everything else is the same.
Correct.
I call for the question.
All right. Roll call vote.
Justin Rock,
Yes.
David Glabe,
Yes.
Corinne Dudo,
No.
Nicole Howard,
No.
Molly King,
No.
Mary Ann Meisner,
Yes.
Denise Wheeler.
Yes.
Vote passes.
Now to ensure that we are going in the right direction, Robert,
Say that again.
which part are we on?
Okay. So if there are no other changes that anyone is proposing for the general fund budget, I think shifting the conversation to see if there are any related to enterprise and other funds, just so there's a clean break because of the mayor's conflict with the latter. So if there's nothing else on either of those, so I'm seeing nothing on the general fund. So if there's also nothing on the enterprise fund, then it would be a motion to,
Just to amend it.
as amended for the resolution.
I move that the proposed resolution adopting the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget and levying taxes be read by title only, put to a vote, and passed as amended. Is that right?
It is.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote? And I will be abstaining from this vote.
David Glabe,
Yes.
Corinne Dudo,
Yes.
Nicole Howard,
No.
Molly King,
No.
Mary Ann Meisner,
Yes.
Denise Wheeler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, now with that, we still have,
More motions and resolutions for other stuff on the same agenda item.
correct.
On the same. Somehow I guess I can't
I
find
do
it.
think we need to revisit that resolution because I do feel like we are not following the resolution this body passed. And I hesitated on that vote, but, and that's part of my hesitation, that we're going against what we passed in there.
Yeah, well, my takeaway is that we'll bring the resolution to you, and maybe we'll wait and do it in August so that I can get some, perhaps July, but I need some specific guidance on what you want it to look like.
Yeah, we're going back and forth. We need to be more consistent.
So the next one that we'll be discussing is a proposed resolution electing to receive state revenues. Correct, Robert?
Yes.
So that is the motion that we are looking for at this time for the resolution.
I move that the proposed resolution electing to receive state revenues be read by title only, put to a vote and passed.
Second.
Any more discussion on this resolution? At this time, could the city recorder read the proposed resolution electing to receive state revenues by title only?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of LaGrande, Union County, Oregon, declaring the city's intent to receive state revenues.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Now are we done with that?
I think we're done with that.
Very well. So now we will be moving on to 7B, which was 3E, ratifying.
No, we have 7A first.
I probably should get 7A first.
I lost my track.
My bad. I've been corrected.
I'm in the full packet.
There we go. All right.
7A.
So we are going to go to 7A, considering a resolution approving ballot title for the city's charter amendments and referring the measure to the voters at the November 2024 general election. And with that, can we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I think you've had 2 work sessions on the charter amendments. And the last step that the council takes is to approve this resolution. It is very specific in how many words and lines you get in the ballot measure. The city attorney is the one that crafts the ballot title, which is shown at the bottom of the first page of the resolution. And our intent would be to do some educational pieces to have people understand. But the main portion here is, as opposed to running for position 3 or 5 or 7, we will have 3 council positions open every 2 years. Those are 4-year terms. And all qualified candidates would be forwarded to the November election. There would not be a primary for that. And if there's 3 positions, top 3 vote getters win. Very simple. And for the mayor, that will remain a 2-year position, but there also will not be a primary for the mayor position. It will just all go to the general. And there's a couple of other little kind of cleanup language things. But the main thing is the elimination of the position numbers that we've had.
So by doing that with the mayor, what if there were 5 people, then it would be the same idea. The top person would win, right? Okay.
I think it's worded pretty clearly too for the ballot. It's simple and very to the point.
Thank you, Robert. At this time, I would like to invite public comments. Is there any citizen that would like to?
I'll make it short and quick. Steve Clements, commenting on this proposed charter amendment. The first thing to say is, I think the last charter amendment was almost 30 years ago. So you're making precedents here with what you're trying to do. The second thing I would say is I fully support this idea. Council positions are nonpartisan, and I'm sure you pushed this thing around more ways than Sunday. But it's not, your positions are nonpartisan. By having open ballot, people get to pick 3. I think you'll do away with this partisan type of approach that we've seen in the past few years. So I'm looking forward to it. Explaining ranked choice voting, which I think we're doing here. No,
Nope, this is not
Not yet.
right. This
Top
is
3.
just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Then I was going to say, you're going to have to explain that because I'm not sure I get it.
Yeah.
But that's not what it is. But being able to pick 3 out of hopefully more than 3. It'll be a lot of fun.
You mean,
Thank you.
you mean
Thank
like
you.
it is this year? Just
Yeah, we had a lot of discussion on that in that the positions are also not regional. Like
Right.
Portland, you're representing a neighborhood,
Area.
so they
Yeah.
kind of didn't make sense anyway.
And people
So
So here, just,
people- and people get it mixed up with school district because they are done in sections and they think that you're supporting, that you are in one of the areas and you're representing that area, which you're not.
So we thought this would just be a lot clearer, and I think the wording is nice and
Clear.
brief.
so at this time, let me finish through the public comment and then the council will have their discussion and their time to speak. No, you're good. Is there any other public that would like to speak at this time?
Roxy Ogilvy. This is a logical decision. As you say, the seats and the positions, the way they stand mean nothing. The other thing it will do is eliminate running unopposed. The ranking chooses the top choices of the voters. So I fully support this, and I think it's a long time coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more public testimony? All right, at this time, we will invite council discussion or comments on this matter.
I think I've already made them. We had a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
of.
we've already
discussion.
just- we already-
Come on, Mary Ann.
No,
That's
but
what
I
I'm
already made
saying.
mine.
I'm not trying to be mean.
I would just say I appreciate all the work that's gone into this, and I think, Corinne, you were the one that kind of,
Yeah.
were the impetus for getting this ball rolling and allowing us to, think about revisiting, are we doing this the right way, rather than just going by what's always been the status quo. And so I appreciate your efforts to, stimulate that discussion and what has ultimately resulted in this. I would hope that, the public sees it as we do, that this is an opportunity to, as Roxy pointed out, avoid people running unopposed. I don't think that's healthy. We need representation of ideas. The goal here, I hope it's perceived as we have intended it. The goal here is to generate discussion among council candidates as they run. Hopefully these are idea-centric campaigns. This is not about me versus so-and-so. This is, if 6 people run, we know 3 are going to make it onto the council that cycle. And I would hope that the candidates then look at it, instead of saying, well, I've got to make myself, tell why I'm better than so-and-so. There's a really good probability that so-and-so sits on the council with them, and they've got to learn to play well. And so hopefully it becomes more about ideas and why somebody feels that they are, that they belong on this dais. And anyway, I would just say that, and thanks, Corinne, for your efforts there.
And I was just going to say, Steve, you said it was 30 years ago. That's how it was 30 years ago. Exactly what we are doing right now. Yeah. So, okay.
How about a motion?
I move that the proposed resolution approving the ballot title for the city charter amendments and authorize the city election officials to finalize the steps to refer the measure to the voters at the November 2024 general election be read by title only, put to a vote, and passed.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Is there any additional council or discussion? At this time, can we have the city recorder to read the proposed resolution by title only?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of LaGrande, Union County, Oregon, approving ballot title, placing the following measure on the November 5th, 2024 general election ballot, amending the charter of the City of LaGrande.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Very well. Now we will be moving back to, which was 3E, ratifying expenditures for asphalt contracting, oh, good Lord. Contractor for Greenway Trail Extension. Oh, I just messed that one all up. I apologize. So Stu, could you help me out here, please?
Mr. Mayor, Council, this is simple. This $25,000 was allocated to the reserve fund in 2021 and in 21-22 to the tune of $10,000 to $15,000. In April 22, we received the grant for the project and started to move on that project. We had some property owner disputes that we had to work through. So Stu forgot to budget to spend that money out of the reserve account, so it still sits there without your approval. So in order to pay the concrete contractor, as that money was intended to do, I need your approval to do that.
So we set this money aside, and then that helped us to get grants, and that is what's paying for it. And
Years later.
Stu had a little oof, and then, all the money is already there.
Correct.
Okay, that's the only reason I wanted you to come up here, is to just make sure that we're not pulling this out of our hat
Not to,
after.
humiliate me for forgetting
To make sure we pointed out Stu's oops.
No, I saw that, I just wanted it to be clear.
Yeah, absolutely clear.
So,
The money's in the bank.
this
and
is why
to
we-
authorize to spend it out of the reserve account. Yep.
Okay,
Are there any other questions? This work is, well, I'll say that.
thank you, that's all I.
We're good. Thank you, Stu. So at this time, to continue it on, I would like to invite public comments on this item. I don't see any. So we will move on to council discussion. And if there's none with that, we can move on into the entertaining of motion.
I move to ratify the expenditure of $25,000 for the asphalt contractor to pave the Riverside Park Greenway Trail extension as presented. Second.
We have first and second. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Very well. All right, next portion will be Union County Commissioners update.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. I have a few updates for you. If you want to still hear more about budgets and budget season, this was very, you know what, I like when there's engagement in budgets, so you guys are doing a great job. Your staff's doing a fantastic job as well. But we are proposed our budget adoption on June 26th at 9 a.m. More than welcome to come and hear the county discuss their budget.
Thanks.
Okay, I didn't think so. Hey, I just wanted to throw it out there. The county was supposed to have the ADU ordinance discussion today, but we had to postpone it. We did have a lot of turnout for that. I know there's a lot of pros and cons to that, and it will be moved to July 17th at 9 a.m. in the Meisner Room. It's over by the clerk's office. So if you need any more information on that, please contact me. Greater Idaho Movement meeting is coming up on June 12th at 9 a.m. If you cannot make that one, don't worry. There will be another one in 4 months. If you can't make that one, there'll be another one in 4 months. And so on and so forth. But just put that on your guys' radar.
Thank you.
Update on the symposium that was here last month. I talked to you that I was going to attend, and the chief attended as well. The sheriff, district attorney, Daisy Thompson with the CHD. We all attended the symposium in Salem. That was about the House Bill 4002 on the Measure 110 amendments for the deflection program. I almost sat for 7 hours in a chair, which is a personal record of mine. I got up twice to get lunch and go to the restroom. I learned a lot about deflection programs, and I learned that they are very, very expensive. We were awarded $150,000 for the next 2 years to help with our deflection program here in Union County. When deflection programs usually are around $1 million a year and so forth. So with the help from the chief, district attorney, I don't want to take all of the chief's thunder on this. Chief's district attorney, sheriff, they're masterminding a plan to help the $75,000 per year to help at least go towards some type of help for deflection. What that looks like, I'll let the chief and district attorney and the sheriff maybe explain more on that. But I got to see firsthand how bigger counties with bigger budgets get to use it and help people out with this deflection. And there was some really great stories in my opinion. Just wish we had money. But here we are. That's all I have. I don't want to take any more of anyone's time. Questions?
how did the tour go with the fairgrounds? Were you taking, I can't
Yes,
remember.
the
Yeah, how did that go?
Department of Emergency Management,
Uh-huh.
Director McMahon showed up, and she is very on board. The primary reason we had her here was to allocate a 1% of lottery funds to go to all fairs across the state. That was relinquished back in the recession, 2007, 2008, and never was brought back. And so the fairs across the state would like to have that 1% reintroduced. And then on a side note, I did talk about the plumbing issues, and I did receive a thank you card from her and saying, whatever support you need for your project, let me know in the future. So we did not make the agenda on the e-board meeting last Friday, but I'm going to push to get it on the e-board meeting in September, which I've heard from a couple different people. They don't want capital construction projects on the e-board. I don't consider this a capital construction project anymore. I consider this an emergency.
Yeah.
So this is Senator Hansel's last e-board meeting. This is Senator Finley's last e-board meeting. And hopefully with the help of Oregon Department of Emergency Management, Oregon Department of Health and Human Services, and DEQ going forward with this project, that hopefully we'll get on the agenda and at least get the ball rolling with that. And that is my next goal. If not, it's next session and we won't be able to see the money for a year.
I know.
I know, trust me, this is that next level of the politics. That's why I like this level. I like this level. I don't want that next level.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. Staff comments. I see a few of you back there. I don't know if anyone would like to speak.
Okay, so the Greenway Trail is under construction, thanks to the Public Works Department, Kyle's crew. That trail is cut and done and the gravel's down, right? So all that's left is the asphalt. That's what I was about to say earlier, but I saved it for the staff comments. So if you want to check it out, what it would look like without asphalt, you can do that now. It's where it's going to be. The fence on the property owner side is up. Everything's done except for the asphalt. So it's pretty great. It should be done within the end of the month with that approval tonight. So exciting stuff. And then summer is absolute chaos in my department, as you might know. The summer pool hours start on Monday. School's out Friday. So for LeGrand, pool hours increase. You can check the website for the details. That means more and more rec swim time and more lessons in the morning and the evening all over the place. And absolute madness with summer camps. We anticipate another banner year. We've never had 50 kids in the summer camp until last year, and now we're gonna have 50 plus other camps going at the same time. So it's incredible growth. To somebody's point over here earlier, when you mix in growth of the program and inflation, the cost and the people are needed, right? That was part of that discussion. So I appreciate that. It's just it's incredible to see the anthill of activity that happens in the park in the summertime, and not just the park, but the parks. So anyway, appreciate your support on that. Any questions about that stuff? Thank you.
I can top that. So we recently received a large donation from a local longtime library patron that recently passed away. So we are purchasing, or we have purchased already, another story walk. So we are going to, in collaboration with Parks and Rec, install that at Bernie Park in Linda Elegant's memory. So
Oh, nice.
Would any more staff like to speak this evening?
They're all.
You know, I'm looking at every one of you.
Uh-huh.
It's something I could do. It's fun. Robert.
Thank you. Let's want to kind of back up to a couple things about the budget. First and foremost, really appreciate the work that the staff put into the document.
Yeah.
And I also very much appreciate the interaction at the budget committee and here tonight. There's disagreement on how to get there, but you don't do it in a disagreeable way. And the level of professionalism demonstrated is really gratifying. The ability to add those positions, I think, is really going to be helpful. So thank you. Choking.
That's it.
Excellent. So, city council comments. Is there any councilor who would like to make a comment this evening? Now would be the time.
Oh, I just want to, I'm sorry. I just want to agree that I really appreciate all the, all the city managers, all of their departments and everything. And that's been said a lot and it's true. And even though I voted no, I feel your pain. I'm just letting you know. And I would like to volunteer at the library. I am not working at the moment. Woo-hoo. So any of those crucial hours, I would like to donate my time to you. But I just want you to know that we're just trying to look out for the future. We just don't want to ever have to cut anybody because that is the hardest thing to do. And because people are depending on that income and everything, and we just don't want to be in a position to ever have to cut a position again. And I think that's the motivation for me for voting the way that I did.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other councilor would like to make?
I think we all agree that we value our staff a lot,
We do.
and we think they do a great job. And this issue was not against them, but it was the fact that we wanted to make sure that we don't run into this, have a deficit at the end of 5 years, that we need to have this money. We know that. So just want you to know it's not against you guys at all.
Thank you. Is that it? My little comment is I would like to thank all the volunteers, staff, city manager, city recorder. There's a lot of time that goes in the budget. It is definitely not the most exciting thing. Well, sometimes, like this evening was exciting, but it is not exciting. Everybody did a great job, and we do really appreciate each and every one of you. You guys do a great job, and you make our city is what it is. And with that, we are adjourned.